Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.
Hello, I'm so glad you're here with me today. I have Dr. Todd Cooney back with us. And today we're going to be talking about the top myths for when it comes to keeping our pets healthy. And so welcome, Dr. Todd. I'm so glad you're here today.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So we have both kind of collaborated on a list of some of the things that we hear on a regular basis. Doesn't mean this is all, but it is some of the most common ones that come up. So wanted to start with, my dogs and cats need to eat the same food every day. So what is your take on that, Dr. Todd?
Yeah, so that's a big one. And it's a tough one for some people to forget that, to unlearn that, because I see it a lot where people will say, I'll ask them about the diet and they'll say, well, it's the one in the green bag. That's what we've always fed him his whole life. He doesn't eat anything different. And I just go, ooh. Mm-hmm. So, but I think it's better. And you know this too. It's better for them to get a variety of food, just like we eat a variety of food, to get a really balanced diet. Sure, the bag of kibble is balanced technically, but it's not really good for variety. And it's
right. And a lot of it is so cooked and everything. So, yeah. So what I have found is that not only, like, let's say you're feeding a kibble, it's always good to rotate proteins because you're going to get different amino acids from each of those proteins, which is also going to help with all the organs and all of that. But then also, if you're feeding a kibble, this might be a really good time to add, let's say you're feeding a beef kibble, add some pork freeze dried or add some pork, turkey bone broth, something to kind of get some different vitamins, minerals, proteins, that kind of thing in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that goes with, some of the things that, conventional medicine teaches, and that is, a lot of, they have to stay on this food. Don't feed them any people food, just make sure that they eat out of this bag, their whole life.
Yeah. The human food thing blows me away because I hear that a lot. And people will say that their vet always told them, don't feed human food. And I go, well, what do you think human food is made of? I mean, it's not something that's bad for animals. It's probably better quality than whatever's in their pet food.
Exactly. So, yeah.
As long as you avoid certain human foods, there's some that you don't want to feed to your animals, but
of course, some are toxic. But
just using common sense and there's plenty of good references for doing that. But I really think the best ingredient is variety, for an animal's diet and not feeding the same thing over and over. That's a really good way to cause a food allergy.
Yeah, exactly. Day in and day out, the same thing.
Yeah. Most food allergy things I see, it's the case where the animal's eaten the same thing since it was young. They've always given it chicken or they've always used this certain food. Yeah. And so they don't understand how all of a sudden the animal's allergic to the food.
Exactly.
Well, their body just got tired of it.
Exactly. They said, no, we're not doing that one anymore.
It's rejecting it. Yeah.
Yeah. So on that one, really, variety is the spice of life. And we want to try to encourage, people to try different foods, not just feed out of the same, bag every day. And when you do start to feed other foods, of course, you want to err on the side of caution and go slowly. So
go slowly. Yeah, that's the key.
Especially if they've been eating that same food for a long time.
Yeah, take it easy. If you have a setback, they have a soft stool or they vomit or something, just give them a short period of fasting and just try again. Usually they just need a short adjustment period for anything to do like that.
Sure. Yeah, and sometimes enzymes, probiotics, those kind of things can help too with the transition. So don't get discouraged if that happens, but just know that your dog's trying to adapt to something that it hasn't had in a while. So or ever.
Absolutely. Ever.
Anything else you want to say about that one?
No, I think that pretty much covers what I would say about it. Okay.
The next one on our list is that kibble cleans my dog's teeth.
Yes. That just, no, that one cracks me up because I heard a veterinary dentist one time, and he said, yeah, just like eating cookies cleans my teeth.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought, well, that's a good way to put it. People could relate to that. But everybody likes crunching a cookie or anything crunchy. So the crunchy kibble doesn't really do that great of a job.
Right. And one thing too is like if you think about cookies or pretzels or anything like that's crunchy, there's always a little bit stuck in your teeth, so then that's when the tartar, the plaque, all that stuff starts to bind and our dogs, we very rarely, brush our dogs' teeth, and so they're not getting that, cleaning, so that it's just sitting there gunking up on their teeth. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I used to see that a lot in when I was in the military, and I was an Army vet in Germany, and we took care of military dogs, and the military has, regulations about what the military dogs are supposed to eat, of course, because they have regulations about everything. But so they had to eat a certain kind of kibble that the military bought from a pet food company, which I won't mention, but a commonly known big pet food company. This food came packaged in these metal 5-gallon containers. And it was horrible. It smelled horrible. It looked horrible. The dogs didn't really want to eat it. But that's all they could eat by Army regulation. They couldn't have any other food. And so guess what? The dogs had horrible teeth. And they have to work with their teeth. Part of their job is to be security dogs and to do bite training and all that. So these dogs had really... The only kennel that didn't have bad teeth was this one Air Force kennel. And the dogs had great teeth. And I couldn't figure it out. And I asked the kennel master about it one time, and I was there looking at the dogs, and he said, oh, yeah, we have a German fellow that comes in on the weekend, takes care of the dogs for us, and he always gives them a big beef bone.
There you go.
He brings a big raw beef bone, and they all get a beef bone, and they love it when he comes, they get that. And they all had perfect white teeth,
wow.
Just from a beef bone once a week.
Yep.
And that was a big eye-opener for me, because here's all these other dogs, these other kennels, suffering with horrible teeth, and they could have all introduced that thing, but most of the kennel masters were too afraid to do it because of the regulations.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You don't want to break the rules.
Yeah, like especially like raw meaty bones and those
raw meaty bones.
Yeah, those are nature's best toothbrushes. Yeah,
other thing, now a lot of people like to use antlers, and there's a lot of good antler products out there, and I hear that a lot. If I mention bones to people, they go, oh, I thought you weren't supposed to give them bones. And
exactly. Yes. So
it's another one of those myths.
Exactly. And cooked bones, not so, you definitely want to stay away from those, but those raw bones are the ones that
raw bones are good.
Yeah.
That's what we try to tell people.
We had a customer at my store a few years ago, and he had I think it was a 9-year-old lab, and he had a ton of tartar on his teeth. And he started getting, the marrow bones and started chewing on, I think it was like one every few days. And they brought their dog in there, and they said, can you believe this dog has ever had bad teeth? And they look like puppy teeth. So it's amazing. I know.
It's amazing. Yeah. And you can combine that with other good things like coconut oil, a little bit of coconut oil.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's really not that hard to do. And most dogs will gladly chew on something like that. They're excited about it. They love it.
Mm-hmm.
My dog, she goes into nirvana mode. We say she goes into Zen mode when she has her bone.
Yes.
You can't even distract her away from it. She's just so engrossed in it.
Oh, yeah. Well,
until she gets it all cleaned up. Yeah.
And that brings another, level of that. It calms them down. It releases serotonin.
It's calming. Yeah. Their brain releases all kinds of good chemicals, and it's really relaxing for them.
Yeah. Well, so bottom line is, don't count on a kibble to clean your teeth.
Oh, yeah. That's how it started with kibble.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Don't assume the kibble will keep the teeth clean. Yeah. Because I hear that a lot too, that people have the impression that they need the dry food to keep their teeth clean, and so. I know. Just for a little crunch. That's another one that I hear a lot.
Yeah. Yep. Next myth is raw food is dangerous and filled with bacteria. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, I would say it's potentially dangerous. I mean, especially if you're feeding raw chicken. Chicken's famous for salmonella and other things, and any kind of raw meat could have some bacteria on it. You probably should assume that it does. And I always just caution people that, well, it's not that dangerous for the animal, but especially dogs. Dogs' bodies are designed to eat that sort of thing. I mean, you're talking about an animal that eats roadkill.
I know. I was going to say, I've had my dogs eat roadkill. Yes. Their
stomach is similar to a vulture's, and it can handle a lot of insults that you wouldn't think of. But yeah, the people handling the raw food should be careful. I always caution people, just act like if you're handling raw chicken, wash your hands, keep your countertop, your cutting board cleaned off, and be careful in that way. But you don't really have to worry too much about the animal's safety. But a lot of vets will tell people that they're exposing their animal to a high risk by feeding them a raw diet, and that it's dangerous. And
scare them.
All kinds of things. Yeah. Especially like the emergency clinics and the university hospitals. We get a lot of nasty grams back about raw diets.
I bet you do. Yeah.
And our clients have to go over there.
And what I have found too is, for example, the food that we carry at my retail store, it's all gone through a kill step because the FDA regulates it, and they want it to have bacteria or something that they can pull and do a recall. But technically, Kibble has had more recalls than raw food.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And, so
anything could be contaminated. Yeah, not just raw food.
Exactly. So what we like to encourage our pet parents, if they're worried about the bacteria, they don't want to go to the grocery store and get raw food. That way they can have the peace of mind and know that, this has gone through a kill step, and that, that doesn't have E. coli, salmonella, listeria, any of those things. And they'd have to test and hold it before it even goes out. So, and I think
that's a good point. That's a good point.
And I think that's where a lot of vets just don't have that awareness that there is raw food out there that can be more bacteria friendly, safe. And, we've got kids touching the food and all of that. Well, I mean, if they touch the dog food, the kibble, it could be worse. So, yeah. So,
and dogs licking the kids in the face right after they eat their raw food.
Exactly.
Like
that, Yeah.
All sorts of little extra worries.
Sure. Yeah. But
I remember years ago, the pet therapy dogs that would go to nursing homes and things like that. Some of the bigger pet therapy groups wouldn't allow dogs that were raw fed to be therapy dogs because they were afraid that they would transfer bacteria to the elderly or to the people in the hospitals.
I know. That's a shame. Yeah, I know. There's two things about having a therapy dog that break my heart. And one is a lot of times they do regulate that they have to eat a certain kibble. And then second of all, they're just vaccinated like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So those two things, I know. And here they are working and giving people so much joy. And, it just, But in general, one of the things I wanted to say is, and piggyback on what you said, is that our dogs are designed to handle bacteria. They can break it down. They have enzymes in their mouth. They have hydrochloric acid in their gut. They're able to break down, even if it is, something that's filled with bacteria. But just like you said, wash your hands, just like you handled your own, family's dinner. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So next one, this is a biggie. Dogs and cats need annual vaccinations.
Old information.
Yes.
Well, that used to be the recommendation, but a lot of vets don't even know this, but annual vaccinations got started as a marketing ploy. There were vets back in the 60s, I think it was, they were at a meeting, they were trying to figure out how to make sure people would come in regularly, and they said, well, let's tell them they need annual shots. Send out reminders, say it's time for annual shots. And people got so used to that, getting that little postcard in the mail, they didn't think anything about it. And vets didn't think anything about sending it, but there was never any science behind it. There was never a shred of science saying they need annual shots. And, Ron Schultz, who did a lot of vaccine research, he even published in a vet textbook back in the, I think, early 90s, Current Vet Therapy, which is a real big conventional vet textbook. And he published an article with another fellow, I think it was Tom Armstrong maybe. But they published a thing saying annual shots are not necessary and shouldn't be done. They could be harmful. And this is in the 90s, and no one even batted an eye. No one paid attention to it.
Yeah, it just kind of got lost somewhere. Mm-hmm. So explain the science behind why our animals don't need annual vaccinations.
Well, mainly because most animals, dogs or cats or whatever animals you're talking about, have pretty good natural immunity by the time they're about 6 months old. A year for sure, but most of them, by the time they're 6 months old, their immune system is considered competent, which means it can stand up to challenges of whatever, virus and bacteria. So that's the age where we usually stop giving nosodes. We recommend people to use nosodes instead of vaccines, but only up until about 6 months old. You really don't need to do it much past that. And it works great. And a lot of it's based on some other research by Ron Schultz and other people who really studied the immune system. So, and if there's, if it's not helpful, why do it? Especially if it's potentially harmful, which it definitely is. Every time you give a vaccine, it's potentially harmful. So, yeah.
So that goes to our next question, because so many people that are, I guess, aware of vaccine and vaccine damage, they also do titer tests. And those, tell us about that, because one of the myths is it reflects immunity. They reflect immunity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, titers, and people are going to be hearing more and more about titers, I think, over the next several years, because this whole issue of vaccine hesitancy, that's what the AVMA calls it now, vaccine hesitancy. And I think it comes over from the human side, where they have a lot of vaccine hesitancy, because a lot of people, especially people not wanting to vaccinate their children, and that's been going on for quite a while. But now with people not wanting to vaccinate their animals, mainly, a lot of reason is because they're maybe talking to a vet like me who's telling them not to. But
right. Exactly.
So titers are being pushed as a way to get out of not really get out of vaccinating, but checking to make sure your animal's okay and doesn't need a vaccine, right? So if it's done with a blood test and it looks for antibodies to the virus, like if you're doing one for distemper or parvo, it looks for antibodies to those viruses. And if the antibodies are there at a certain level, then the vet says, okay, your dog's immune to this virus, you doesn't need a vaccine. But if it's too low, if it's below a certain level, and this level is arbitrary, whoever set the level, it doesn't really make sense, but the level's arbitrary. If it's too low, they say, well, he needs a booster. His titer's too low, And this, it doesn't really make sense. And my teacher, Dr. Pitcairn, who taught me homeopathy and taught a lot of other people, he's also a PhD in immunology. So he knows a little bit about immunology. And every year at our meeting, the idea of titers comes up, or the topic comes up, and there's usually some younger member of our group saying, well, we need to do titers. What about titers? And so he'll stand up and say the same thing he says every year. Titers don't reflect immunity.
Yep.
And, hoping that he never has to say it again. But so anyway, that's, and another thing, and I had this thought too, is there's a really good book called Vaccine Illusion. I don't know if people can see, probably can't see that.
Oh, no.
It blocks it out.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Okay. It's a Kindle book called Vaccine Illusion, and it's written by a PhD immunologist. And you can find it on Kindle. But the subtitle is How Vaccination Compromises Our Natural Immunity, What We Can Do to Regain Our Health. But anyway, one thing she says about titers is she says positive titer is a proof of immunity only in the absence of vaccination. So the only time you can say a titer is proof of immunity is if they haven't been vaccinated.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
So if it's a vaccinated animal or person, a titer is biologically meaningless, is what she says. So it doesn't really, it muddies the water.
Interesting. Got it.
Say much about it. Yeah. But, the titers are going to be used though now, or have been used a lot to say, okay, your animal's immune or your animal's not immune. And it's going to be, now there's quick tests that you can run in clinics, in vet clinics anyway, kind of like our heartworm tests that we run that are pretty fast. We get results in 5 or 10 minutes. And so you'll be able to do a titer test that fast and say, okay, your dog is okay. It doesn't need a vaccine. But it's not accurate.
Right.
It's not accurate. Especially with her information of a titer in a vaccinated individual is meaningless. I hadn't really ever read that before until I read that in her book. But so that really kind of blows it out of the water. So I tell people, if they ask me what about titers, I say, spend your money on something real, like good food or, especially good food. Just use that money and buy some really good food.
Yeah.
Because even if the titer comes back low, if you're a person who's not prone to vaccinating, what does it mean? What are you going to do if you're not going to vaccinate?
Exactly.
What are you going to do with that low titer? Just go home.
Well, and I've also heard the term immunity is kind of like being pregnant. You either have it or you don't.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right.
And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't be a little bit pregnant.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. And I've heard that too by other people who say any titer is a titer, whether it's too low or not, there's still a titer. I think Don Hamilton said that. And that's especially true, again, if the animal's not vaccinated and you test them. A lot of natural breeders now are checking titers on their animals just to prove a point.
Yeah.
And so they take their older breeding stock that have never been vaccinated and they prove that these animals have titers from natural immunity, which is very meaningful because they weren't vaccinated. And if they hadn't been vaccinated, then according to what she says, you can't really rely on that.
Yeah. So I guess it's because you're artificially inserting that virus. And so you can't rely on it. Is that kind of what she's saying? Yeah.
Well, the vaccine antibodies, the antibodies produced from the vaccine are more of an artificial type of immunity. It's not as solid as natural immunity. And they saw this a lot during COVID, and it was really hard to find information on it. But some countries like Israel published studies about natural immunity, and it was amazing what they were finding out. People developing natural immunity compared to the people who had been vaccinated who weren't developing good immunity. They were developing that temporary type of vaccine immunity. So, the same thing happens in animals.
And the other thing that I have learned too is that you can vaccinate, but you're going to trade a acute disease for a chronic disease.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
because vaccination creates a chronic disease state, and that's what we call vaccinosis.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize is that, okay, maybe I am going to have immunity to fill in the blank, but in 2 years, we might end up with lymphoma or diabetes.
Yeah, or allergies.
Allergies, yes. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Probably the number one cause of allergies is vaccines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what would you say to the person who is trying to get there with vaccine hesitancy, but also wants to be assured that her dog has immunity?
Feed a good diet.
Yep.
Avoid chemicals as much as you can. Use natural means of healing like homeopathy or other natural methods of healing, because you're helping the body become stronger. You're not suppressing the immune system. And vaccines really confuse the immune system. So it's an artificial sense of security, I think, to vaccinate. It might make you feel better. You feel like, oh, I've done something now to protect my animal. But really what you've done something to confuse their immune system. Maybe long term, it could be for life or it could be short term, but
right.
So you just have to, I think, come to terms with it in your own mind and be at peace with this idea that they don't really need vaccines to help their immunity. If anything, it harms their immunity. Once you get to that point, then it's pretty easy to go from there and just, find positive things you can do.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of great things you can do to build up the immune system that don't involve vaccinating.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Fresh food, fresh unchlorinated, unfluoridated water, getting outside to play and all those nasty.
Reducing stress. Stress is a big one. I mean, a lot of our animals have really stressful existences that we've put on them,
Exactly.
Unknowingly a lot of times, but they're stressed out.
Yeah.
So, and if you're feeling stressed out, your dog probably is too.
That's right. I know. Yeah. It's so interesting because it's true. Our dogs, what they're exhibiting or showing many times is like a mirror from us, and if you can have the, insight to go, what's going on with me, then we can maybe help them by getting more balance.
Yeah. And it's really tricky. I mean, it takes some self-examination, self-reflection.
Yeah.
But it's very true. They're like little emotional sponges. I've read that description, emotional sponge, I think is accurate.
That's such a good, I like that one.
You pick up on that energy.
Yep. And I think one of the things too, just that I feel like I need to mention here is that, when you follow nature's laws, the other thing you have to do is trust that system works, and so that's where, the immunity and all of that's going to come. It's just following that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Trust is a big part of it.
Yeah.
And it's not the easiest part by any means, Yeah, it took me a long time to trust homeopathy. Even as I was studying it and saying, yes, I agree with this, I had to really convince myself.
Yeah.
Or be convinced. I couldn't convince myself. I just had to be convinced.
But you had to have those experiences and see that it really worked. And that's where when, pet parents, they start feeding fresh food and they stop vaccinating and they stop, the pesticides and all that. And then all of a sudden their dog's coat's shiny, their teeth are better, all this stuff. And then they start to, it's like that trust. Then, oh, okay, I see what you mean now.
Yeah, it really makes it a lot easier once you start seeing those results. Mm-hmm. And you realize that this is great. This is really working. It makes a difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
I started seeing it years ago when I was still doing conventional practice, but I would have the occasional oddball client. I call them oddball clients because they would come in, they'd be the ones who didn't want to vaccinate. They just came in for something different. And their dogs looked amazing or their animal looked great. Mm-hmm. I would say, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, we just feed a fresh diet. We do a homemade diet and they pretty much eat whatever we're eating.
Yeah.
And I always thought, well, they're just lucky, they're just lucky because they're not doing conventional things and they're still having good. But now I realize they were way ahead of me, on what they were doing. And I know. Some of those folks are still my clients, fortunately, and I see them now and they laugh at me because I finally came around.
Exactly. Yes.
To see things their way.
Yep. That's awesome. Yep. But the animals that you're working with are so much healthier now. So that's great.
They really are. Yeah. I just was talking earlier this morning to a vet tech who used to work with us, and she went and got a different job at a big conventional clinic down in Indianapolis. And she goes, I can't believe how many more sick animals I see here than what we saw in our practice. And I said, we see our fair share of it, but for the most part, a lot of animals we see are just coming in for wellness visits, or they're just, coming in for minor complaints, but she's seeing all the heavy duty chronic problems. Plague any conventional veterinary practice today.
Absolutely. It's awful. Yes, I know.
It's bad. Yeah. And
it's the thing that
really think it's normal.
I know. And the thing that really gets me every time is when I see a dog that obviously has chronic allergies or chronic something. There's something bothering them. And they, the pet parent is, I just got them all up to date on their vaccines. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the pet parent doesn't know any better, but the vet should know better,
Well, that's the thing. The vets don't know either. They don't have a clue because, first of all, they shouldn't be vaccinating unhealthy animals. It says so right on the label.
Right.
Vaccinate healthy animals. But, oh, well, who cares about that? We're going to vaccinate them anyway.
Exactly. Yes.
That's a really big pet peeve of mine. And so much so that I wrote the editor of the journal a few years ago, the American Veterinary Journal, and said we shouldn't be vaccinating unhealthy animals. And the editor wrote me back and he said, I don't see a problem with it. He said, I think we need to tone your letter down a little bit. And I said,
wow.
He said, don't tone my letter down. This is an editorial. This is not something you tone down.
Exactly.
Unless I have profanity or something in there, just print it the way I wrote it. And he goes,
exactly. Okay. Yes, exactly.
We're going to upset some people. And I said, oh, that's okay.
Really? That's not what, that's not what it's about. It's about getting the message out.
It was just after that was published, that it was crickets. No one said anything.
Yeah.
There were no rebuttals or no discussion or nothing. It was just disappointing. But
because it's just they've been indoctrinated into that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But there's a lot we can learn from, and trusting our immune system. And, it's just like a lot of times I'll tell people, I'm sure, people my age, they usually had their shots when they were a baby, or a kid. And they're not getting those same shots every year, So, So, we don't have to feel like we need to do that for our pets either.
And people understand that. They can relate to that. That's a good example.
Yeah. But so that's, I'm glad you shared that about titers also. And I know that titers, they only can measure like one part of the immunity, like the hormone, the blood, the lymph, humoral. Yes, blood. Thank you.
The antibodies. It's just measuring antibodies, and that's just a small part of the whole immune response. The really big immune response is the cell mediated immunity, the macrophages, the neutrophils, lymphocytes, all the white blood cells that really are the first responders.
Yeah,
and the antibodies are kind of a minor part of it. So I had it explained to me this way, and I thought it was really good. They said, if you go and you drive by a fire station, you got the big fire station there, and the doors are closed. You don't see any fire trucks. There's a couple of firemen sitting around the flagpole out in front. You think, wow, that's not a very good fire department. They've only got 2 firefighters, and they've got no trucks or nothing. That's what a titer shows you, the 2 firefighters sitting around the flagpole. You don't see the 5 fire engines inside, all the people inside, waiting, ready to go when the bell rings.
Yep.
So that's the whole fire station is the immune system. That's the complete immune response waiting to happen.
I love that analogy. That's so good. Yeah.
To me, it's a good visual.
Yeah. And it makes so much sense because it's just like a tiny little snippet of what that fire station is about.
Yeah. Yeah, because when the challenge really happens to the body, the whole immune system responds, not just the antibodies.
That's right.
So it's an amazing system that's very, it's amazingly designed, and it's very effective if we don't interfere with it. And one way we interfere with it is vaccination, and vaccination definitely. The same lady who I was quoting about the titers, she also has a chapter about how much vaccine damages natural immunity. She has a long piece about measles in people, and how one of the reasons we're having all the measles trouble now is because so many women that are having kids nowadays were vaccinated back in the 90s when all the measles vaccines started being
they didn't
more
have
mandatory.
Natural immunity.
So they didn't get natural immunity, and they can't pass that on to their babies. Even if they're breastfeeding and all that, they aren't passing good immunity on to these kids. And then these kids get vaccinated too, so it compounds the whole issue.
Yeah, it just keeps on going.
I think a similar thing happens with animals. That we're vaccinating, and then the mother doesn't pass on good immunity to pups, and it just trickles downhill.
Oh yeah, the whole exactly. And I know it's funny that. You can actually
we're doing the right thing.
Exactly. Puppies can have vaccinosis even when they're not vaccinated.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around, but it's just all part of, the stuff that they've been exposed to up to that point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's not just a matter of getting a pup from someone saying, okay, well, I'm not going to vaccinate this pup because, like you said, they can inherit that. And in fact, natural breeders say it takes about 5 generations to get rid of it. Once they stop vaccinating, they have to go through 5 generations of puppies to really see the end of vaccinosis. And
wow.
So that's pretty incredible that it's that stubborn.
I know, so ingrained in that. Wow. But that's cool to know. Yeah.
And it makes sense compared to what we see in real life, with all these animals that we see that are struggling with chronic problems.
Well, yeah. And the shorter lifespan, the cancer, it's just, years and years of vaccinated dogs and maybe eating really bad food. And then they have puppies. And then, it just continues the disease cycle.
Not to mention all the environmental stuff that's happening and all the things that are going wrong in our environment that are affecting everybody.
Of course. Yes, exactly. So, there's that, which that's a huge...
That could be a whole another program.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so dogs and cats don't need annual vaccines and don't trust the titers to reflect immunity. All right.
Of course, we have to say that rabies vaccine is required in every state.
Yeah, of course.
And so people need to realize that. And I always just tell people to decide for themselves, just like if you're driving on the highway, you may decide not to ride the speed limit, and that's your business,
Right.
You're assuming that risk. So if you're deciding not to vaccinate for rabies, as long as you know the whole story and what's involved in making that decision.
That's right.
Yeah. So we let people make that decision for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they can still be clients of ours, even if they don't want to give a rabies vaccine. They can still come in and get their nails trimmed and have their teeth cleaned and do all kinds of things.
Yes.
We had someone drive from Pittsburgh this morning to get her dog spayed.
Oh, wow.
Because it's a 7-hour drive, but she couldn't find a vet in the Pittsburgh area that would spay her dog unless she gave her vaccines. So,
yep. That's how it is here too.
She came all the way up. Yeah. We did have somebody come from Texas one time to get their dog's teeth cleaned.
Yeah. I believe it. I know. Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's crazy the stories you hear, but this was a 15-year-old dog that had all kinds of chronic health issues, bad teeth being one of them. And the vets wouldn't clean the teeth without updating all the shots. Right. So yes.
They said, well, I don't think we're going to do that. We're just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
I know.
So they came up to Indiana.
That's awesome. Take a road trip. I love it. But you know what? I love that, those people were that dedicated to that
amazing.
Dog. Yeah.
Well, it was actually a very devout husband because the husband came with the dog and because his wife was insisting.
Oh, yeah. Good.
He did it. He was
good job.
A good husband. He took time off work and drove up here and stayed in a hotel and got the dog's teeth cleaned.
Aw.
Back home. End of story.
Yes, good for him.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome that you guys do that and offer that because it's very discouraging as a pet parent when you call the vet and you have something going on and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, are you up to date? We need proof of this, proof of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not why I'm calling you. I'm calling you because they broke their leg,
My dog needs urgent care.
Exactly. This isn't that discussion,
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be like if you went into the ER having heart attack symptoms and they want to know if your flu shot's up to date,
Exactly. Yeah.
Which they probably will ask you that.
They probably will. Yes. That and COVID. Yes.
But I think they would still treat you anyway,
That's right.
They wouldn't turn you away.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's become more militant, I've found, in veterinary practice. Like it's real, just, nope, you got to have this. You got to do that.
I call it, I think so. I call it the curbside attitude. I think they still have the curbside attitude, even though curbside service is over with now in most places. But
sure,
you still treat clients the same way like they did during curbside.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Close you out, not talk
exactly. Yeah, you cannot enter unless you have.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. One of the next things we have on our list is my dogs and cats need conventional heartworm meds to prevent heartworms.
Yeah. Well, I've used heartworm nosodes for many years now, and I've yet to have a dog test positive. And the people I learned it from used them for decades before I even knew about homeopathy, and they also didn't have any problems with it. They didn't see any positive tests, any breaks in the prevention. So that's one way to do it. One way to tackle the problem is to use nosodes, homeopathic nosodes for heartworm. I haven't used the nosode at all in cats, and cats don't seem to be a big risk for heartworm, but it can happen. It's just a lot less likely to happen in cats.
Sure.
But there wouldn't be any harm in using a nosode for a cat, I don't think. But a lot of people use them in their dogs, and it's probably one of the most common remedies we send out to people that are using homeopathy. They may not be using anything else, but they're using heartworm nosode.
That's awesome.
And
how do they dose that?
We recommend dosing it once a week.
Okay.
And we use a 200C potency. That 200C just seems to be a good potency for nosodes for prevention. And so 200C once a week. It's a little more, time consuming than doing a monthly dose, but I think once people get into the routine of it, it's not too bad.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And we put it in dropper bottles, and they only need to give 1 or 2 drops for a dose. So, a dropper bottle will last you all year usually.
Yeah.
And then, the next year, sometimes you might need to get a fresh dropper bottle, but
yeah,
it's a fraction of the cost of conventional heartworm prevention. And and it can be used also. I've treated several dogs that already had heartworm, and we've treated them with the nosode and homeopathic remedies alone, just those 2 things, and they've gone back to negative. We haven't had one yet that didn't convert back to negative.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So they've all gotten over it. And you don't have to do any of the exercise restrictions or anything like you do with conventional treatment. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really nice. Because most dogs are just heartworm positive, and they don't really have any symptoms. Well, the ones we see anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing that we deal with quite a bit too at my store. But we also, it sounds like the nosodes, that's a very effective treatment. And not only just treatment, it's preventative, but we also like a product called, it's by Amber Naturals, and it's called HWF, which stands for Heartworm Free.
Heartworm Free, yeah.
Yeah, and that's been a really good one too, and it's herbal.
It is a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
And some people use both. They'll use Heartworm Free and the nosode together.
Yeah.
I think one or the other is fine. If you just want to pick one of them and use that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it also treats if you have heartworm. So again, just like the nosode, you don't have to go on that strict exercise restriction and all of that. But, and one of the main things too is trying to get away from some of those conventional heartworm drugs. They have a lot of side effects that can come along with them, especially if you're using like a triple wormer or something, it's even more potent. Yeah. So, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, well, there's, there've been several new products over the last decade or so, and there's a lot of new ones still coming out now. And it's a big deal. It's a big competition with the drug companies, see who can capture that part of the market, because it's really a big business. And so there's some that are very safe and very good that I would recommend, and then there's some that I'm not so sure about, that I'm not a big fan of. The extra long acting things scare me a little bit,
the injections.
Well, I read that they're coming out now with a 12-month Bravecto injection. So Bravecto has been like a 6-month, I think it was a 6-month or a 3-month oral thing, but they're going to have an injectable product that's supposed to be good for a year. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Seems like it'd be really strong.
It doesn't sound very holistic to me, but
yeah, exactly.
And the thing that worries me is once that's in the body, if you're having problems with it, how do you get it out? How do you?
I know. I've thought of that too. Like, what if they have a reaction or,
you just have to treat the reaction, hope for the best, but the drug will stay in there. That's what it's designed to do.
Yes, yeah. I know. So that's a little scary.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it goes back to keeping their immune system strong. If you're doing that, animals with healthy immune systems are pretty much less prone to parasites anyway. It's pretty rare to have parasite problems if your dog has a healthy immune system.
That's true.
And a good diet. They're getting a lot of exercise.
Yeah.
All those other positive things. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's good. But yeah, I think the no-sods are great. And if the listeners are interested in those, they'd probably need to contact you, right?
Yeah. They can contact me. And a lot of times that's the reason people first make contact, is they're interested in no-sods. And especially if they hear a podcast or something about it, and they want to learn more about it. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. No, that's great. Okay. Our last myth that we're covering today is grain-free diets cause heart problems.
Yeah. You probably hear this one a lot.
We do.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. I remember when it started because, when I first became aware of it, there was an article in one of the trade magazines that we get called, I don't know, it was DVM, Veterinary Today or DVM 360, one of those. It's just like a news publication that comes out once a month or so. And they had a big front page article about grain-free diets causing heart problems, dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM, which is a pretty serious heart problem. And that's a pretty serious claim. I mean, to make this claim that these diets are responsible for this, people got all up in arms, and there was all kinds of confusion and emotion about it. And it turns out the whole thing was based on a hoax. It was not true. And like a month or two later, they printed a retraction article, but nobody really saw the retraction. And so people to this day still talk about, people will tell me their vet told them a grain-free diet was not good and it's going to cause my dog to have heart trouble. And so it's still this myth that hasn't died out yet.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what was so frustrating, is that it came with a vengeance, that grain-free causes all these heart problems and everything. And then people were coming in and saying, no, I can't feed this anymore, But then when they retracted it, it was like just little bitty whispers out there, there wasn't.
It was buried like on page 30 in the middle of the page.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that wasn't true. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Instead of having a big front page article.
Yeah.
Like they should have done.
Well, and I think part of it was driven by, one of the big companies feeling a little bit like their market share was getting challenged.
Yeah, I think so, because some of the grain-free companies are smaller companies, but starting to get more popular. And I think you're right. I think they launched that as a way to try to stomp those little guys down a little bit.
Exactly. So, yeah.
I know I work with one of I don't have ownership or anything, but I know one of the company's reps real well, and we get some prescription foods from her, and they're famous for the grain-free diets. That's mainly what they do. They were one of the first companies to have grain-free diets. And so I asked her about it, and she goes, "Oh yeah, we've been getting a lot of calls about that." And our tech services people are all over it, and they're answering a lot of calls from people, and a lot of people concerned about it. This was back when it first started. I don't know, it's several years ago.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID.
Yeah. And the main reason they came out with grain-free diets was because of food allergies, and a lot of dogs couldn't handle corn, wheat, soybean, some of the real common grains that were going into most dog food at the time because it's really cheap ingredients. And dogs were reacting to that in pretty bad ways. And so they came out with these grain-free diets, and it was amazing to put a dog with allergies on a grain-free diet and watch him get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chronic ear problems, chronic skin problems, but just kind of dry up, disappear. And it still does help a lot in a lot of cases. It seems like the allergy things have gotten a little more complicated though over the years. And now some dogs are even reacting to the ingredients in grain-free diets.
Yeah.
So that's a little frustrating.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. They're poor little immune system.
Yeah. And it used to be too, the go-to diet was lamb and rice. Dogs allergic. Put them on lamb and rice. And now a lot of dogs are allergic to lamb and rice. But,
oh my gosh. Exactly. Because they were on it for so long. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is there really is no hard evidence that supports that grain-free diets cause heart problems. And
if there is, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It was mostly like a little anecdotal, this is what the dog ate, and then they passed away, and there wasn't anything to substantiate
it. Well, unfortunately, the story really got a lot of traction and a lot of publicity through, social media or whatever. It caught on so fast and spread around so fast that, it was probably almost half of my clients that I saw every day were asking about it.
Yeah.
When it was really at the peak there. And that's unusual for people to ask about things like that.
Exactly. Yes. So hopefully we've been able to debunk some of these myths for people when it comes to some of the top ones that we hear. Definitely didn't cover all of them, but at least we got a good little start here.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yes, we may have more coming. So, and if you could let everybody know how they can find you, if they want to consult or if they need them no-sodes, anything like that.
Yeah. The website is naturalanimalconsulting.com. Just those 3 words all together, Natural Animal Consulting. And that's where they can find more information about scheduling a consult or just asking questions. There's a little portal where they can email a question, and we try to get back to people right away with that. But yeah, and once people are doing consults with me, I'm pretty much at their service. They have my cell number, they have my email address, so I'm at their beck and call most of the time if they have questions. So,
and I will attest to that. Yes,
I enjoy it though. Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm always glad to help, and it's nice. It's nice, especially if you're interested in holistic things. It is hard to find help. I know that's true, and there aren't too many of us out there doing this kind of work. So
it's true.
So I try to be as available as I can.
Yeah, and you are. I'm always appreciative of that. Whenever I need you, you're right there. So yes, it's awesome.
You're pretty good at handling things on your own. So I'm glad for that too.
Sometimes I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I've done everything. What do I do now, Dr. Cooney? So yeah. Okay, well, this has been great today. And hopefully, again, we've been able to help some people kind of see the light on some of these things that a lot of people think are just normal practice of, raising a pet. So
the light, there's the light right there.
There's the light. Yes, exactly. There it is, shining through. That's awesome.
Yeah.